Taking a photograph, clicking a picture is an everyday activity. Every day, people want to take pictures of themselves, they want to upload it on social media, they want to share the places that they have visited, the food that they have eaten, visits to their friends. Quite often, we also take old albums in order to have a glimpse of the past. These photographs prove to be a ticket to the past ages. A photograph captures a moment in time. So today we have a poem by Margret Attwood, the Canadian writer. This is a photograph of me. Let's read. It was taken some time ago. At first, it seemed to be a smeared print, blurred lines, and grey flecks blended with the paper. So she says, this was taken some time ago. This is a photograph of me that was taken some time ago. At first, it looks like it is smeared, The word smear can indicate that something that greasy is on it, something that has caused it to be slightly damaged, or, some sort of oil or any kind of damage could have happened to that photo paper. It is the gray flecks have blended with the paper. You see that here and there the print has gone off. It is an old faded photograph. Then as you scan it, you see in the left hand corner a thing that is like a branch, part of a tree. So on the left hand corner you can see something that is actually a branch. It's a part of a tree. Balsam or spruce emerging, and to the right, halfway up, what ought to be a gentle slope, a small frame house. So she says on the left side, you can see a branch of a tree. The poet no longer remembers if it's a balsam or a spruce. It could be either. And on the other side, she says what ought to be a gentle slope. If she recollects it right, there ought to have been a gentle slope there. But in the picture, you can see a small frame house. So there is a little house and that is standing on a wooden frame. So it is sort of like a little cottage or a cabin. In the background, there is a lake, and beyond that, some low hills. So in the background of this, there is a lake, and beyond that, there are some low hills. So now she has drawn a very beautiful scenic picture. It is something that they would be in any village. There are some hills behind. They're probably green and sunny. There is a blue sparkling lake. There is a small frame house. And on one side, there is a tree. These are all aspects of nature. And we can see in our mind the image of a beautiful scenery. The photograph was taken the day after I drowned. So suddenly the poet tells us when the photograph was taken. It was taken the day after she was drowned. I am in the lake, in the center of the picture, just under the surface. Now the poet tells us that she lies in that lake. She is a drowned, lifeless body in the lake. It is difficult to say where precisely or to say how large or small I am. So she says, I can't tell you precisely where I am because my dead body is under the surface of the water. The effect of water on light is a distortion. But if you look long enough, eventually you will be able to see me. So she says, water on light, it is a distortion. So I cannot clearly point out where in that lake I lie. Am I in the center? But if you look long enough into my picture, into this old photograph of me, you will be able to see me. So now in this poem, we see a sudden shift. The first paragraph describes a very beautiful scenery, while the second paragraph tells us that the poet is talking about a photograph that is taken after she was drowned. So here I feel that the poet is telling us that she has been erased. So one of the main themes of Margaret Atwood's poem can be the erasure of a person or a community. So here, if we take it in the perspective of a woman, quite often Margaret Atwood is very well known for her treating of the subject of female identity as well as alienation, female history, and she tells us that in a parochial system, the female voice is silenced such that she no longer belongs in the picture. She has no voice, she has no opinions, she becomes Mrs. Somebody, Miss Somebody, she does not have an identity. And there we see that this woman is who is told how to live, she is told what she may say and how she may behave in a society. She is told what she may dress as and how she must deal with the problems in her life. Everything is dictated to her. The very words that the photograph was taken, that itself is a passive voice. It is not a photograph that she asked somebody to take or she has taken herself. No, she is not the subject, she is the object. It is a picture taken of her. And here she says that the effect of water on light is a distortion. So here the poet also deals with distortion or misrepresentation. Women in history have been misrepresented. Brave women have not been shown as brave, but rather they have been misrepresented and shown as people who were not conventional, who could not stick by the rules, who were wayward, who were promiscuous. Now, if we take it to another level, Margaret Atwood was very much interested and very much into exploring the history of Canada. She talks about female identity, she talks about her personal self. On one level, we see the personal self as a person when a person is subjugated, when she is not able to put forth her opinions. On another level, we see woman as that one half of the species that has had to fight to get the right to vote, that has had to fight to get the right to dress as they wish, the right to politics, the right to lead a house, whether lead a domestic life or a life outside the home and hearth. So for all these activities, a woman has had to fight, and quite often she is erased. And now we also look into another level of society. Imagine a picture where you see a few children who are native Canadian, aborigines. They sit there looking very innocent. There are a few children sitting on the desks. There is a teacher standing behind them. It is the Indian Canadian school. And you look at this picture and you feel it's a perfectly innocent picture. This is a school made by the settlers. We can see the young children sitting there and studying. There is a lady beside them. She seems to be a teacher. So what is the image that you get? You feel that the settler has come to Canada and has started a school for the Indian children. But here, what has happened? We see that these children have short hair. Yes, their hair has been cut off. Their hair, which is symbolic of the Inuit, the aborigine, it is cut off. These children are removed from their homes, never to see their parents again. They are removed and placed in this residential school where they are psychologically, sexually, physically exploited, beaten. They are sold into slavery. They are placed in non-aborigine families. And under the guise of adoption, these children are made to work in these homes. Their traditions, their culture is erased. And the settler by bullets in the night, by the chalk and the board in the morning, has taken away their history from them. We know that in Canada, just 100 years ago, there have been sites in which numerous children have been buried, and those sites have later on been found. That is, these so called residential schools, where a great many Indian children were lost. So, all this is erased as the world presents a totally different picture. So, here Margaret Attwood shows us that even history is a construct. It depends on who writes the history, who has taken the photograph, and who is going to tell you what the photograph is about. So, this poem is, in fact, it has so many depths. When we go to the word smeared, we feel that it is an old photograph. It is smeared with maybe grease, or there's something sticky on its surface. You can't see it clearly. And at the same time, think of the word smeared as in besmirched, as in a reputation taken away, a character assassinated, a community put to genocide. That is what has happened in Canada. And that is what has happened to the Native American people, those people who belong to these lands, those Inuits who have been trampled on. So, all this can be seen. So, now Margaret Atwood tells us, she even also, in another way, we can take it that are these words spoken by a woman? Yes, it is definitely spoken by a woman. And at the same time, it could also be spoken by one who is not so educated. There is such a simplicity about the lines. The person says, I do not know or remember if it's a balsam or spruce. It is a person who does not know what that tree could be. Could it be that this is not an adult who is telling us the story? Could it be a child who did not know that he or she was being taken away from her family and never being given back? And why was she placed in other families? What right did the government have to take this child away from her birth parents? So, is this a child telling us the story? Who is telling us about the small frame house? The lake which stands symbolic for life, for fertility, for womanhood. It is a very feminine picture, the lake. So, who is telling us this story? Definitely, it is a minority. It is somebody who is weaker, someone who could not stand up for themselves, somebody whose picture could be represented in whichever way that the photographer wished to represent it. So, but this person is telling us, look, reader, I will point out to you, I don't know exactly where my body lies. I am somewhere in the center. I know the water has caused the distortion upon this light, but if you look close enough, if you look long enough, eventually you will be able to see me. So, if we dwell deeper into the story of any minority, be it a woman who is subjugated, be it any minority of people who are erased from history, whose genocide has happened, even so, if we dwell deep into it and we look long enough, you will be able to see. And what we need to understand here is this obscure part of history is what gives you the complete story. Margaret Atwood shows us that history cannot be believed as the complete truth because everything is a perception. Even an image, a photo, does not show you the complete truth. We feel that an image is definitely a proof for what has happened. but even so, it can be put in such a fashion that the whole story is never told. So here the author says, I cannot precisely say how large or small I am. We cannot precisely say how wronged, how misrepresented, how much of this history has been erased. How much is the culture, the voice of this marginalized sect being silenced? So, Margret Attwood is a Canadian activist, poet, environmental activist, as well as a spokesperson for feminism. She has worked hard and donated much of her the royalties to the Indian community of Canada. She has written about the survival, which is one of her main themes, is survival of the human race, alienation, and also the conditions of marginalized people all over the world. Her very famous works include Surfacing, The Handmaid's Tale, Cat's Eye, and The Blind Assassin. Thank you. This is a photograph of me by Margret Attwood. It was taken some time ago. At first, it seems to be a smeared print, blurred lines and grey flecks blended with the paper. Then, as you scan it, you see in the left hand corner a thing that is like a branch, part of a tree, balsam or spruce, emerging, and to the right, halfway up, what ought to be a gentle slope, a small frame house. In the background, there is a lake, and beyond that, some low hills. The photograph was taken the day after I drowned. I am in the lake, in the center of the picture, just under the surface. It's difficult to say where precisely, or to say how large or small I am. The effect of water on light is a distortion, but if you look long enough, eventually you will be able to see me.